Hello, entrepreneurs. Joe DiChiara coming to you live from downtown Flushing, New York, once again for another amazing episode of How to Win at Business. And yes, we are still preparing for the 5-day challenge. I'm looking forward to it. All of my Facebook Lives the last couple of days have been on topics that we are going to be covering, and we're going to be covering a lot. I can't believe how much content we have. We have guests. We have a lot of, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We have Elizabeth Frederick planning some games for us. We played an awesome game of Hangman today in our mastermind. And I have to, commend Elizabeth for what she's done with the mastermind group, because I look forward to it every Saturday afternoon. And it's not just that we have fun. I learn a lot in these groups, and it's just awesome, and it's free, and if you want to learn and have fun, join Mastermind with Joe DiChiara. I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer for me, if you have the time. If you're watching live, give me a hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, please give me a hashtag replay, because I do go back and check, if people are actually listening. And, in today's mastermind, I learned a lot more about what goes through the minds of people when it comes to preparing their taxes. And so I've been, doing a lot of research, let's say, trying to understand why people procrastinate, why they can't get their documents together, why they wait till the last minute. And I get it now. The fear of money, it's a real fear. And I believe that when people hear the word tax return, like a chill must go down their spine. And, to be honest, to be perfectly transparent, I get letters from the government, for my business, for me personally. I got hit with a penalty because I didn't file a blank quarterly form. So I had to do a penalty abatement. And the other day I got 2 letters from New York State, and I didn't feel good about it, because it hasn't been a check. It hasn't been good news in a long, long time. So I get it, but what's the solution? The only solution that I could come up with is to educate, to teach people what's on the tax return, what's on a W-2. And I just sent an email out to my entire family. They all come to me to do their taxes. My 3 children, my aunt, my cousins, and I love helping them. But it dawned on me, they don't even know what's on the W-2 and where it goes on the tax return. So I actually scheduled a Zoom meeting with my family so that they could actually ask me questions about their taxes. And it just amazes me that, I know some very, very intelligent people that have panic attacks when it comes to doing their taxes. So I want to try to take the mystery out of it and do some training. And what I thought would be a good way to do it is to just simply go through some of the forms and show you where I get the information from and where it goes on your tax return, because it doesn't just, get there. It has to be input, and then it has to be checked. And there's a lot of information that has to go into doing a tax return. And I think if people are really aware of how it's done, it might make it a lot less stressful So we're going to give it a try here. So let me share my screen. We're going to first look at Form 1040. And there we go. And so let's just go through, from the top down, some of the basic information that goes into everybody's tax return. So every form has a number. They're either a form or a schedule. The schedules get attached to the form. They all have a year. They all have information. They have these secret codes that only the CIA and FBI know what they mean, and Homeland Security, but we don't pay attention to those. But the first thing is the filing status. One of the most misunderstood, complicated questions that have to be answered. Now, if you're single, it's simple. Okay. If you're married filing jointly, it's simple. If you're a head of household or a qualifying widower or married filing separately, it's not so simple anymore. And people make major mistakes. Just a simple definition of whether somebody's married or not causes people a lot of unnecessary cost, because it costs more money to file separately. It costs a lot more money. Your taxes go up. There is no tax benefit. And the reason why somebody might do married filing separately is because maybe one spouse is dealing drugs, and the other spouse doesn't want to be responsible when the FBI comes in and charges them with tax evasion. So they're not good situations. So you got to be careful. Okay. If you're going to a tax preparer, make sure that they know and understand your actual situation. Because I see married couples. So this is another thing that you have to be careful about. There's a lot of married couples living together that file separately. They file as if they're single. That's a no-no. Okay. They still don't really have a way to cross-reference whether somebody's married or not. It doesn't go into the IRS database. It's not part of the Social Security system. But there will be a way at some point, because it's an open loophole. So if you're married and living together, you got to file either married jointly or married filing separately, not single, because that's against the rules, let's say. Okay, the next section is just your name, address, Social Security number. If you want to give money to the presidential election campaign, I never understood why this question is even part of a tax return, because it shouldn't be. Now they got a lot of things, because the world has gotten smaller. Now, the US-based tax returns are asking questions about things that are happening around the world. Okay. It's getting tighter and tighter. In the olden days, there were those tax havens, the Cayman Islands. They're gone. They're all gone. If you want a real tax haven now, look at Puerto Rico. Okay. If you want to live in Puerto Rico, they got like some kind of unbelievable incentives to help businesses. But, and and the tax rate is very low. I think it's like 4%, compared to, over 20% here. The next line is, are you getting a standard deduction? Actually, you want to know something? They just changed this. So this is another change here. So standard deduction. Someone can claim you as a dependent. Okay. Your spouse is, and this is actually a good question now, because this is something that I have to answer in the tax program. Okay. But it never actually showed up on the tax return. And if your spouse itemizes on a separate return, so these are some of the complications. What the heck is a dual status alien? Okay. Next, what standard deductions do you get? When they changed the tax law, a lot less people are able to itemize. And the difference, somebody asked me, what's the difference between the standard deduction and itemizing? Well, when you itemize, you can deduct things like charitable contributions, some medical expenses if it's above a certain amount, mortgage interest, real estate taxes. So it was beneficial for a lot of people to itemize. What they did was they raised the standard deduction. So everybody gets a standard deduction, and you compare what is better, itemizing or the standard deduction. Okay. And like I said, not many people itemize anymore because they limited some of the deductions, they removed some of them, and they just made the standard deduction higher. So that's what the standard deduction is. And, you get an extra thing if you're blind, and that. Now, dependents. This is another confusing area. If you have a child, they are obviously a dependent. When you have, so many people are divorced or not together. So then it becomes, another question. Who gets to take the child? Who's providing the support? So this isn't another straightforward question. There's tests. They call them, the relationship test. You can't take your friend as a dependent. Okay. You might be able to take your grandmother as a dependent. Okay. But if she's collecting $100,000 in a retirement plan, you can't take your grandmother as a dependent, because there's something called an income test. To take a dependent, you have to provide more than 1/2 of their support. So that would be a no-no. Now we get to wages. Okay, and I want to switch this up for a second, because on line 1 is where you actually put, if you had a job or jobs, this is where the numbers from your W-2 go. And here is a W-2. I don't think most people even look at these. I get, when I was doing, mail, like paper documents, everything's pretty much electronic now. But I would get W-2s in the envelope not even opened. And it just amazed me that people would just, not even look at it. So, on a W-2, the standard stuff, line 1 is what you've earned on your pay stub. Okay. That's what goes over here. Okay, so when I get my tax program, I enter all of the information, every piece of information that's on the W-2 goes into the tax program. The employer ID, if there, anything, if there's a box with information in it, it's duplicated in the tax program. Over here is where you would have, information about your retirement plan if you have one. dependent care benefits if your employer gives you any. Over here are for, all, a bunch of other miscellaneous deductions like a 401k, retirement plans. And over here, they'll put other miscellaneous items that came out of your check, like SDI, that's state disability. Most people have to pay into that, and they do it through their employer. And when you look at that, you say, okay, SDI, what is it? Well, that's really another tax. We're being taxed left and right and left. When you think about it, you're paying sales tax, real estate tax, income tax, Social Security tax. Now I'm paying into disability. If you have a business, you're paying payroll taxes. Okay, I think this information is kind of important. Now let's go to, we'll cover the front of the 1040. Over here we have, information about your interest, dividends, if you got any IRA distributions, okay, and pensions. So now these come from this form, a 1099-R. And again, all the information that goes on here gets put on the tax return, and it flows through to these lines. Okay. So, one thing you should do is if you go to a tax preparer, you should get your return and add up all the line ones on W-2 and make sure that they add up to what's on the tax return. Because believe it or not, accountants make mistakes. And one of my first job as in the tax field was working for a tax attorney. And we did over 1,000 individual and business tax returns by hand. And every return, the tax attorney would meet with the client. He would gather all their information, add everything up, come up with a tax return, a preliminary number, and then we would check it. And our job was to find the mistakes. That was before computers. And we got them done, by hand, over 1,000 tax returns in a 90-day period. Okay, February, March, 75 days we did over 1,000 returns by hand. And there weren't that many of us. Okay, so that's how I got an education and what's in the forms. Also, you should know. Okay, let me go back and share the screen again, because I do want to cover a couple of other things here that are also important. Let's go back to the 1040. Now, what they did, okay, so over here, obviously that's where you put your Social Security benefits. Over here is if you're playing in the stock market or you have mutual funds, those numbers go here. And other income, what they did was they took a lot of lines off the front page and they put it into a schedule. And one of those other income items is unemployment insurance. Now, this is important because a lot of people have collected unemployment this year. And what people don't know is that you may not be sent a Form 1099-G. That's the form that reports your unemployment insurance. Okay. It also reports your state, if you got a state refund, and other kinds of payments. So if they don't mail it to you, how the heck are you going to get it? That's the question. So in New York State, they want people to go online, wherever you were reporting your unemployment insurance, you're going to have to go online and download the form and send it to your accountant. And hopefully you have an accountant because they're going to need this information. And let me tell you something. I could see already, tax season's only, a couple of days old, but because of COVID and let's see, I'm trying to get my way out of here. So because of COVID and the fact that the post office is also broken, people are not getting their tax documents. I have a client, we're still waiting for stuff that should have been in their hands in the beginning, before February 1st. So again, one of my predictions is the IRS is going to they're going to have to extend the filing deadline because they can't handle it already. I mean, I have clients, as far as the mail goes, because this is part of the machine too, folks. I had one incident where a client sent a $65,000 check to the IRS to pay a bill because the IRS was going to levy her bank account. Put it in the mail. I don't think it's arrived yet still. And that was like last month. So be cognizant of all the information that you need. Make sure you have it all. Because what happens to me, folks, there's a lot of details that go into a return. And when I think I'm done and I do my final review and I realize that they didn't, I know that they got unemployment, but they didn't give me the form. Then I got to stop doing the return and I got to ask my client, can you get the form? And that's not a good way to do work. You got to have all the information. You should have all the information before you start. So I hope you got something out of this, and I do hope that you will join me for the 5-day challenge. We're going to be covering topics like this. If it bores you to death and you're not interested, fine. You can take your chances. I wasn't willing to take chances. I became a CPA because at 17, I knew I was going to be in business and I wanted to learn about taxes at 17. So it still boggles my mind how anybody can just let, over 40% of what they earn just go without question. Okay. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. God bless. Over and out. And I will be back again tomorrow with another amazing version of how to win at business. Thank you.